fighting to draw breath, it occurred to him that this was what he deserved. Recently he hadn't appreciated Gudrun properly. He had even begun to find her tiresome, and she also seemed to have lost interest in him. She kept the house spick and span, and still put her heart and soul into cooking, and they chatted about this and that over dinner, until, when everything had been put away, routine took over. The sofa awaited them. It was as if nothing could dislodge her from lying there in front of the TV until she fell asleep, while he sat in his chair and hopped between channels as she snored softly, her mouth open and her face lolling against the cushion. She wouldn't be dozing in front of the television tonight. There was no doubt about that. She had clearly resisted those who had taken her away. There was a broken glass on the floor and puddles of white wine around it. She must have poured herself a glass while she was preparing dinner, as she so often did. A red pepper and a fork also lay on the floor, and one of the stools was on its side, as if it had been kicked out of the way as she was dragged from the room. The fridge stood wide open. Gudrun would never have left the fridge open. As he looked over the scene, his sense of smell seemed to come to life. He could smell burning. He stood up and sniffed. The oven was switched on, and it hummed, telling him that the fan was running. Gudrun had persuaded him to buy this ruinously expensive oven precisely because of the fantastic fan that she had to have. Flosi opened the oven and saw a long baking tin inside. Without thinking, he reached in and grabbed it, and it took his brain more than a second to process the pain. He yelped, snatched his hand back, and hurried to pick up an oven glove so that he could take the bread out. The top was black, and while the tin's contents resembled burnt embers, he recognized it all the same. This had been Gudrun's mountain herb bread, which was always so delicious with langoustines. He switched off the oven, and then his legs finally gave way as he sank to the kitchen floor. His eyes brimmed with tears, and he could feel the pain flood through him at the same time as he felt the sting of the burn on his hand. Tuesday, Chapter 2. Áróra had to keep a firm grip on the wheel of the jeep as it bounced down the gravel road that led away from the Hafnir road. It was an exaggeration to call it a gravel road, as it was one of these pitted tracks that had neither a number nor a name. Shortly, this little detour through the lava fields would undoubtedly rejoin Highway 44, the Hafnir road. When she had started investigating back in the summer, she could hardly believe how many of these tracks there were leading off into the wilderness from every numbered road in the southwest corner of Iceland. Highway 44 alone had more than a dozen of these trails leading this way and that. A few of those that meandered off to the north led to the service road for the airport runway or towards the Svartsengi geothermal plant, but most of them didn't end up anywhere. They just faded away out there in the lava, becoming dead ends, just like her efforts to find her sister. Áróra glanced over her shoulder and up through the jeep's open top. The drone followed obediently, keeping an altitude of 12 meters, just as she had programmed it to do. This was high enough to capture images a few meters either side of the road, but low enough for the pictures to be clear, and to get anything worthwhile out of this, she would need clear images. She was surprised when the track came to a sudden end, as she had been certain that this was one of those that lay in a half-loop away from the Hafnir road and back to it, but when she compared the drone footage against the map, she found that she wasn't where she had thought she was. Not that it mattered. She could take that particular half-loop next time. This was the first calm day for a week, and she was determined to use the few days she had to fly the drone. She'd heard that the weather would worsen before long, bringing with it high winds, and she recalled from her child